The next session, I told you, is going to be an interesting one of highway vehicle rental, pay-per-use and financing in the post-COVID era is what we're talking about. It's an honor and a privilege to give you the panelists for this session. Please join me in putting your hands together for Mr. Satin Sachdeva, Founder and Secretary General, CERA, who's joining me on the stage. Let's do a bigger round of applause. This is the last session. Come on, bring me the energy. Fantastic. Mr. Jaswinder S. Bakshi, SVP Commercial Finance and Head Construction Equipment and Commercial Vehicle Finance for Tata Capital, is also a panelist. Welcome, sir. Mr. Vijay Dhoke, Head of Rental Businesses for Mahindra CE Rental, is the next panelist that we'd be happy to invite on the dais with a huge round of applause. Up next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Nilesh Odedara. I hope I pronounced that right. Odedara. Mr. Nilesh Odedara, Joint Managing Director, Shriram Transport Finance Company, is the next panelist on the dais for you all. The gentleman is walking up on the stage. Let's show him some love and put our hands together. Mr. Sohail Sheikh, Managing Director, Sahil Freight Express Private Limited and MyCrane, is the next panelist on the dais for you all. Welcome, sir. The moderator for this panel is Mr. Jinal Shah, Chief Growth Catalyst, Expanders Consulting Private Limited. So that's your panel, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Shah, the stage is yours.
Object. So thank you and welcome back from the snooze mode. So I'll begin with a good morning rather than the good evening. Thank you everyone for being patient all through the day and panelists for joining us being the last session. Let's try and make it more interactive. As we discuss about rental, culturally, we have been equipment buyers rather than an equipment rental. And at some point, depending on the nature of the projects or the number of hours used, equipment rent does make a lot more sense economically. We have seen some similar trends following from the automotive industry, the Ola Uberization of the vehicles, and it's likely that we see these trends trickling down to the construction or off-road equipment going forward, as we have been adopting many of those trends, be it the emissions, be it the technology transfers or the business models from the automotive into the off-road. Considering the fact that we live in an era where equipment costs are continuously increasing, pressures on asset deployment and utilizations are increasing, and at the same time, volatility or uncertainty of the projects is a new normal. So I believe we will see a natural progressions towards more adoption of equipment as a rental. But today, I'll allow, let us understand more from this panel on how the on-ground realities are with respect to equipment rental business. So let me open the panel discussion, beginning with some views from the industry association. Mr. Sachdeva.
Yeah, is it audible?
Yeah, it's good to be back on the physical forum.
Yeah, very good evening, all of you. I mean, we are at the end of this session, but we need to wake up now. We're talking about rentals, which is coming up in a very big way. And I can make sure, I mean, to all of you that rental is a way forward. I am representing Construction Equipment Rental Association of India, which is now growing in numbers. We are more than 500 members. We have all the organized rental players with us, and we are growing in numbers. We are not just closely working with Indian entities, we are also working globally. We are very closely working with ISEMA. We are working very closely with Global Rental Alliance. We are working very closely with European Rental Alliance. and a lot of other associations to get the best of rentals in India, which was missing, some time back. I mean, if you just talk about 4 years back, the penetration was just 5 to 6%. I mean, we'll talk more about the categories of rental categories and then the particular penetration of each category. But in general, the penetration has fortunately increased to 25 to 30% now. And if we talk precisely about those big specialized crane segment, piling segment, mining segment, as we cover all these categories along, this has picked up very well. I mean, somewhere the penetration is close to 60% also. So that is a big achievement. You can have a big applaud for all the rental players in India and abroad. Although there is a long way to go as compared to global advanced countries, wherein the penetration is more than 60%. And above all, if we talk about OEMs, I mean, let me tell you that the major stakeholder for any of the rental company, either organized or semi-organized or even a small petty player, they are the parent organization. So we cannot go, because we are not a manufacturer, we don't have any R&D facilities or something like that. So that way, we are working very closely with these OEMs, those original equipment manufacturers, say JCB, SANY, XCMG, these Tata, everybody, I mean, to name a few. But everybody is working hard, and in recent times, we have seen that the quality is now better off. I mean, as compared to previous, after sales service has also grown better, and things are growing on a very rapid pace. And manufacturers are really helping us in terms of skilling of our manpower, even sourcing from operator to mechanics, and for after sales service, extended warranties, everything is there with the flavor. We have the right choices in the market. I think this is the right time to be in the rental business, which is picking up on a very fast pace. And I think yet the best is yet to come. And we are looking forward to more than, 50 to 60% of penetration in recent, maybe by next 2-3 years. This is what we are looking forward to. Thank you, Jinnah.
Thanks, Mr. Sachdeva. I'd like to add upon that. If you can elaborate a little more, if I understand rightly, we were looking at around less than 10% kind of equipment penetration for foreseeable years. So the equipment industry has been, rental industry has been around for almost 10 plus years. And if I go by the percentages that you have just shared of 30-25%, I see a big jump from 10 to 30%. Is there a particular equipment sector that is driving that equipment growth, or are we looking in general earth equipment, mining equipment, and what categories are driving those? Because these numbers seem to be too high when we look at the global numbers. We are always benchmarking at 50-60% kind of a potential available for rental. So if you can elaborate what's driving the show and what triggered it from 10 to 30.
See, it's a high capital intensive business. I mean, if we are buying an equipment, there is a big capital involvement is there. So that way, I mean, if we talk about, again, specialized equipment, those are big mining equipments. If we talk about those big cranes, as you see on a daily basis, and working in metros, bullet train projects, and many of the other road projects. Even in road projects, these piling equipments are required. So majorly these piling equipments, crane segment, material lifting, even this AWP segment has picked up very well. And that is one organized sector. I mean, since the beginning, we were saying that this is the most organized sector, AWP sector. Other sectors like road equipment has also picked up, but it will take some more time. And then we have concrete equipments. In concrete equipments, transit mixers are there, which has picked up in a very big way. There are a lot of rental players. I know a lot of rental players who are owning more than 500 transit mixers, and many of these, concrete pumps, boom placers. So concrete pump and this concrete equipment has picked up really well in these recent times. And then finally, material lifting, wherein we talk about crawler cranes, hydraulic truck-mounted cranes. I mean, I'm talking about those big tonnage cranes. So rental companies has that appetite to you buy these equipments from the OEM, and they finally give it on rent. So as we always say, is let's grow together. So, and it will not be, happening without the financiers, so they are the second major stakeholder. So financier like Tata Finance is there, ICICI and a lot of other NBFCs, they are involved in it. And without that, it is not possible because it's again a highly capital intensive business.
Perfect. So if I understand rightly, 30% or 25%, what you were saying is from the value perspective, the penetration.
Yeah, what I'm telling you
Not
is
the
the
volume.
penetration, I'm talking about the general percentage of combining all the categories. If you talk about only about piling equipments, there is a penetration of more than 60%. In crane segment, it is somewhere close to 50% as of now.
I understand.
Yeah.
That's from the value perspective, not the volume perspective, right? So there's enough room of growth available when we look at
Value perspective.
Correct,
yeah.
got it. Yeah, thanks. I think so. It was a good start. At this stage, I'd like to bring in Mr. Vijay.
Yeah, Jinal.
Vijay, rental equipment industry traditionally has been unorganized, so-called dominated kind of an activity. Now, entering into a space dominated by an organized segment, how do you see the scope for professionalizing the opportunity and accelerating? It's a natural progression, like any OEM would like to move from a sheet metal to producing a vehicle to moving nearer to the end customer. So I see where you're headed, and if you can elaborate on how you are seeing the reactions of an OEM entering into a rental equipment business. Your thoughts, please.
Good evening, all of you, and thank you, Jinal. This is one of the interesting perspective. With every passing day, if you see in an OEM's perspective, till date we were very much dominated and working hard towards designing a good product for the consumers or customers. Now what happening is, with every passing day, nobody want to own the equipment for 2-3 simple reasons, because these are essentially commercial equipments, these are construction equipments, off-highway equipments. These products are supposed to make money for the customer. Now when it will happen? When he will utilize that machine for a longer time. So what happening as a OEM is, our inciting says that till the time customer utilize the machine for more than 60-70% of the time, then only it is very viable or money-making machine for him. So as an aspect, we are looking forward and trying to cater the need of the customer, where we will convert a product into a viable service option. Where, and there is another trend which is picking up very quickly, is to focus on the core value addition. So, for example, a construction company who is consuming construction equipments, they would love to focus more on the structure, more on the timely execution, rather than, operating or maintaining an equipment. Probably many of the rental companies are there to further skill up, have a skilled manpower. So in this context, it is very important for any manufacturer to go closer to the user and learn and convert that product as a service for the user.
That's an interesting point. Also, if I see your value additions that come to my mind as we speak, is your ability to recommend the right equipment for efficient productivity. It's also something from your legacy. You can really help the customers make the maximum out of their investments. I think so. It's a very welcome change. But I don't know, Mr. Sachdeva, you can highlight how many of those you think are in an organized activity involved in rental? Because I believe to achieve those 60% kind of an number, we need more structured, organized way of operations. And as like Vijay rightly said, that CapEx is something that nobody is interested if you have an option to do it more productively by leasing out or renting out an equipment. So what's your counter on that?
The rental companies in India are still evolving. It will surely be taking some more time, but then every single rental company is growing in terms of adding on to the new categories, the new equipment. This is a major shift which is coming up in a big way. And above all these rental players, SERA certified rental players, they are owning now all the younger fleet. You know, this is what the major shift which has happened. Earlier it was all about used equipment, but now it is all new equipments. Everybody is procuring, all big rental companies, semi-organized rental companies, they are buying new machines thanks to all the financiers, NBFCs to supporting, I mean, the entire rental fraternity. So this is actually picked up in a very big way. And obviously, I mean, as I myself talked about 60% of penetration, it may not be happen if we are that unorganized. So things are now getting organized. You know, rental companies are now having, you know, a professional website. They are more into, you know, those social media. So communication is no more a taboo for any of the rental company. So people are now more aware. People are now looking forward. I mean, earlier there was nobody was knowing this industry, rental industry, though it was earlier also it was big, but then nobody talks about rental industry. Now, fortunately, everywhere people are talking about rental company. And when we talk about rental company, people are talking about much equipped rental company. I mean, the one who has the right telematics, the right, you know, solution to be more customer, you know, centric, you know, and then having that, you know, good relationship with the stakeholders like OEM, financiers, infrastructure companies, contractors. So things are, but still there is a long way to go. Like we don't have any, you know, those big flashy showrooms or virtual, you know, space or something like that, wherein it will take some more time. But yes, things are evolving. Rental companies are coming up in a very big way. They are, you know, exploring different opportunities, and we are also working on other models. So this dry leasing model is also there. Normally, what model presently is more available is wet lease model. So we are working more on wet lease model, wherein operator and the maintenance is all ours, and then the client is taking care of the fuel and other aspect. So in dry lease model, that has really picked up well in AWP sector as of now, but not really happening in road construction or earth moving. So I think it will pick up soon, and we are also looking for some more options. Also, just one more thing I would like to talk about is that the gentleman just talked about the, you know, rental scenario. In rentals, people, unfortunately, I don't know where the gap is, but we are not calculating it right. We are not really calculating right. So we are coming up with the rental calculator where people are not considering those depreciation part of that equipment, not really considering those inflation, manpower expenses, office expenses. So that the calculation somewhere is missing. If we calculate it right, we'll definitely be going for a rental, you know. So we cannot just own, you know, all the attachments. You know, one skid steer loader has 500 attachments. So no company, I mean, will go for those, you know, 500 attachments. So rather be going, rental options are always available locally and on a national basis. The equipments are readily available. And unfortunately, there is a lot of idle inventory. So you can always, I mean, bargain with the rental companies. Please don't bargain much of it. We are already, you know, working on a very thin margin. You know, the margin is not really great, but then there are rental companies. You can always, you know, go and ask for the right rental price and you'll get it. I mean, yes, things are getting organized.
That's a welcome change. I'll come back to your asset utilization and availability, Mr. Sachdeva, a little later on this, but you mentioned the availability of finance and the support from the finance companies. At this point, I'd like to bring in Mr. Bakshi on his view on how do you see this equipment leasing trend picking up, and especially when we are looking at an category of you know, user or buyer wherein credit history, credit risk, project continuity, and like Mr. Sachdeva also said, the project viability, you know, when they factor in, is under question mark. So in such scenario, how you from a finance perspective are looking at you know, equipment leasing?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Yeah, so from the financing perspective, I'll for this session, I'll talk more about leasing as you asked, because it is a trend which is upcoming, So we have been talking about leasing for many years, but what we see in last 3-4 years, leasing has picked up, and from the kind of penetration what we had about 5-6%. Now the penetration of leasing, formal leasing, is about 10%. So when we say leasing, how it is different from renting? See, a rental is a short-term rental. So at least the visibility of a rental is say 6 months, 1 year, maximum say 1.5 years. In case of leasing, when an NBFC leases the equipment, so the horizon is pretty big. So how it is different from finance is basically the residual value aspect of it. And of course there are taxation issues and the advantages what leasing brings in terms of off-balance sheet. It makes your balance sheet very light because it is the asset does not sit on your balance sheet, it is off balance sheet. Having said that, but the real value it brings is in the residual value. So in case of finance, when I finance for 5 years, I assume the value is say 0 for an equipment, but when I lease, I assume a value of X after after 5 years. And depending upon the kind of equipment, where it is going to run, whether it is mining, whether it is road, whether it is off highway. So that is the value leasing can bring in. And if you see globally, the penetration of leasing is as high as say 40-45%, even with the formal financing system. But in India, it is still now from 5% it has gone to 10%. So so there were challenges earlier. Why it has not picked for many years was the taxation issues. We had multiple VAT systems across the states. Which has been post GST. We have seen the people asking lease from you. Of course, then there are differences between a finance lease, operating lease. Some companies are subject to new accounting norms, that is IND AS. All those things are there. But when when a financer looks at a lease, it as far as credit is concerned, it does not very well differentiates between whether we are financing it or leasing it. But from the equipment perspective, it does make a lot of difference to understand the equipment. And one very, very important aspect is the secondary market. Today, why leasing, why it is 10% is, we don't have a very strong secondary market in India. While you go to any country, you'll have very, very strong marketplaces available. We have, developed in commercial vehicle space, we have seen, one or two very large companies, who are very big, marketplaces, both offline and online. But still, that space has to, take up. Because as a financer, if I know after, 4 or 5 years of the lease period is over, there is a definite value I can get from the equipment. Then I'm ready to take that risk. But if I'm not sure whether I'll get that value or not, I will not take that risk. So that aspect has to be taken care of. Again, as I said, there are other advantages in leasing. It is off balance sheet and taxation, because the whole lease rental you pay, can be knocked off as an expense. While when you finance it, it is basically only the interest portion and the depreciation portion you can claim it as an expense. So which helps you in the saving the tax basically. So and coming back to your second question on financing, see, as I see, so the market in last you can say 4 to 5 months has changed. We were seeing the graph going up for all kind of equipment till say September, October. But since October, what we are seeing is some class of equipment is fine. Like Satin said, whether it is a piling rig or a crane or a crusher, these kind of equipment are and piling rigs, yes. So these are running very, very fine, but there is a class of equipment like earth moving equipment, which is not doing that well. And the basic reason is the increase in the input cost. So the steel costs have gone up drastically, while the rentals have not, the market rentals have not gone to that. And both Vijay and Satin raised this, that, the rentals have to, there should be some mechanism of getting the right rental from the market. Because otherwise you won't make money and you will not be able to pay your EMI, unless you get that kind of rental. So all those things have, little slowed down the market for the earth moving equipment. But hopefully, with the kind of projects we have, whether it is NIP, whether it is Gati Shakti, the lot of allocation what government has done in the budgetary allocation government has done on infrastructure. We hope, in the medium term basis, I don't see much challenge as far as even the earth moving equipment is concerned. It should go up, as we go along. So in the medium term, I don't see a challenge. Short term, of course, there were some challenges for some months. Yeah.
Thank you for your views, Mr. Bakshi. At this point, before I get in Mr. Nilesh, I'd like to get in Mr. Suhail on elaborating on something what Mr. Bakshi said on the availability of a marketplace and an ability to find a platform where you could actually sell the equipment. Yours as Micrane provides that particular platform of not only helping buyer-seller meet, help them choose the right equipment, but also you just mentioned that there is a buy-sell option available. So how do you see this evolving? Because this is something new that you have gotten into the rental equipment space. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, thank you, Jinal, and thank you everybody to share your good thought about rental industry. Before I answer Jinal about the question which he asked me, I would like to further add to Mr. Sachdeva what he said about penetration of equipment, which area it has grown up. Yeah. So as far as my experience, the high technology and high-grade equipments have been added to the existing rental fleets. Yeah. In the past, if you see, the infrastructure industries are being majorly dependent on the foreign collaboration and foreign equipment owners. I just give you an example of like when Reliance Petrochemical was built up. So the major heavy cranes which used to lift up more than 500 and 1,000 and 1,500 tons of equipment. This was all hired from a foreign equipment owners. We never had this type of equipment in India, and neither we have a technology to handle such equipment. Yeah. So in the recent past, our Indian rental companies have grown up well, and they got in good high-end equipment in which our existing project cost has gone down, and the projects are expedited. Yeah. So this is the area, because these high-end equipments are expensive, so the value is being added to it. Yeah. So the equipment which we earlier used to get it from the foreign for major projects, now we have an existing equipment in India. So that's the reason you see that everywhere the big projects are going on, and you don't find any delay in executing the projects. Yeah. No? This is one area. I'll also give an example like L&T. They built up a heavy platform, oil platform, which has to be installed in the mid-sea. And each platform, weight of these platforms are around 4,500 tons. It depends upon 2,000 to 4,500 and even 5,500 tons of single equipment, which earlier when they used to transport from the plant in Hazira to the barge, they used to call for the international companies which used to come and transport that. But today we have that equipment in India, which they are doing it which they are managing it and doing it on themselves. Yeah. So the value is being added to the high-end equipments, and which basically added to our infrastructure standard and our execution of our projects. Yeah. So the other point which I would like to also add here, that as the gentleman told about leasing of the equipment, like he said that if he doesn't have a value, that after post 4 years, I will get a value for that equipment or not. So, and that is the major concern for a leasing company. If he gives this equipment for leasing, and after 4 years, if the equipment cost is gone zero, so that nobody will come for leasing. So what I mean to say here is that the rental companies have built up a good infrastructure for maintenance of the equipment. which in fact get better maintenance of the equipment. They care for the equipment. In the past, we used to say in the older days that Parsi car is very good because it is managed by a Parsi guy and he takes good care of his car. And today the equipment owners are basically managing their equipment in the same manner. So the cost of the equipment, even after 4 years or 5 years, if the maintenance is done good, we have a good team. Foreign companies comes here and train our maintenance people, and the rental company take good care of the maintenance people, and they build up a good facility. And that is the reason that the equipment are having a good value, and the leasing companies are very encouraged to lease the finance, to make their finance so that high-end equipment can come into India. So these are good part, but basically I thought of adding it to it before I can answer your question. Yeah, as a MyCrane, this particular platform, MyCrane is basically, we are supporting and we wanted to organize a rental industry. The contract of a rental industry basically, yeah. This platform brings user, that means the crane user and the equipment owner together. And with this particular platform, we wanted to build up a good future for our industry. Like a gentleman asked a question in some other session, that what is for the upcoming generation who are used to this social media, who are used to working on a mobile, and they don't want to work as a labor type of job which we used to do normally. So what are you going to give it to the new generation? So this digitalize of the rental industry is the platform which we are giving it to new generation, which will be helpful for them to continue this business which is being done by their forefathers and their fathers. Yeah. So we are here registering the crane owners and their equipment, and we are registering the user and their company. So whenever a user has a requirement for the crane, they can just put a requirement on a, we have a very simple crane selectors. Now today what's happening, that a crane company, that the user has to give the details of their equipment. And based on their equipment, the crane company propose which type of crane will be possible for this particular lifting. And the crane companies always look into the availability of their crane and they quote accordingly. So probably most of the time the crane, the equipment which is required to be lifted, they probably end up with the higher cranes which they pay more for their equipment. In our platform, we have a selector where the user or the will just need to mention some points of it, height of the lifting, weight of the equipment, what is the dimension of the equipment, and immediately on a tips of the button, our platform gives an indication that which crane is suitable for you for this particular lifting. And thus the user will just have to ask for that particular crane for their inquiries. And the moment the user put an inquiry of that particular crane, whoever is registered on our platform, who owns this type of cranes, immediately the inquiry is being posted to them. And then they bring in, if they have an availability of the equipment, they quote for that particular cranes here. We are just a lead generator platform. We are not involved in any type of commercial work with them. Once the lead is generated, the inquiry is being dealt between the contractor and users. We are just a lead generator platform here. And we are making it easy because cranes are not like a normal equipment which is being given for rental and they take care of it. When lifting of the specialized equipment, when lifting of the technological equipment, the making of this equipment takes years to build up that particular equipment. If one equipment gets failed or equipment just crane lifting damage the equipment, the whole project is being delayed by next 3 to 4 years because you cannot get that equipment built again in a shortest possible time. So it's more an engineering and technical area which require, so this platform we deliver an engineering and technical support as well. This platform is built by a very technical people who had years of experience in high lifting of the equipment here. So this is one area of our platform. The other area which Mr. Jinal asked about the marketplace. So we have a marketplace over here. in which the people can post their equipments, used equipment, or maybe new equipment. They can post their equipment, and the buyer who are looking out for buying this equipment can come on this particular marketplace and can buy the equipment. Like for Tata Capital, if they have a lease equipment, if the lease is over, they wanted to sell this equipment, they can come on this marketplace. And this Migrant platform is a global platform. We have working on a global basis. So when you put your equipment, you get a global exposure. And people from any part of the world can access and can bring it a buyer for you. So this is one of the area where we marketplace works at. We marketplace also work for OEMs or for the parts manufacturer or for the spare parts. If you have anything, you can also post all the members over here. We have given the flyers over here. You can register your company, put forward your products on this particular marketplace. You may get inquiry from any part of the world for that marketplace on the product also. So it's for everybody. Like it's not for just for the crane companies. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mr. Suhail, the first vibes that I get are pretty encouraging on resolving many of those challenges. At this point, Mr. Nilesh, I'd like to bring you in. Traditionally, NBFCs have focused on-road equipment finances. Yours is a company which has inroads into Tier 2, Tier 3. And of course, most of these on-road customers do progress into off-road customers eventually, right, from two-wheel pass cars to off-roads. So what has been your experiences as the projects move from urban metro areas to Tier 2, Tier 3? There's more opportunities for mid-size, small-size contractors. There's often a complaint that equipment finance is a big challenge. As someone in the panel, key panel note did mention that. So I want you to elaborate from a finance perspective. From Sriram, what's your perspective? Do you see that ease of availability for finance where it matters the most? Is it easily available, or there are still challenges for you to evaluate the right customer? How do you go about it, specifically when post-COVID, a lot of this credit worthiness, credit history, Mr. Bakshi also said the rate arbitration is a big challenge. In that case, how do you evaluate your viability of business?
See, normally in Sriram, basically we are an on-road financer. Around 80-85% of our customers are having an on-road vehicle, and around 10 to 15% off-road vehicle. Off-road mainly, we are not into a high-end machinery and all. We are into a crane business and backhoe loader, and some of the customers are having excavator demand. And in addition to this, we are into a tractor financing. So, see, our target customers is a retail customers. We are not targeting big contractor, big operators and all. And the majority of our customers are like a owner come operator type or owner come driver type in on-road vehicle. So, and we are into a major presence is in rural and semi-urban area. We have a presence in all metros and mega cities, everywhere it is there. But for this construction equipment, I agree that majority of our customers are purchasing equipment for renting purpose only. Because around 70 to 80% of our customers are purchasing equipment, crane or any product that is for mainly for renting purpose. And they are operator also. So for financing purpose, like you are asking about post-COVID or pre-COVID, first phase of COVID, I think that time some disturbance was there. But after that, there is no much challenges we are finding, because our customers, our strength is urban and semi-urban and rural area. And we have a huge network, around 1,800 branches all over India, and plus we have around 800 rural center. So almost we can say all interior places, taluka places and district places, we have a presence. And around 25,000 employees we have, all are on-roll employees. And the majority employees and our team is also a local, local flavor. Normally we are giving priorities. So customers, to identify customers, to take reference about the customers, it is easy for us comparatively. Because, see, we are not 100% like depend on documents and all, like CIBIL report and banking transaction and everything.
Relation-based.
Yes, it is 100%, we can say it is a relationship model. And we have a local presence. So I think it is easy to identify the customer's worthiness, reference about the customers. So normally, as a financer, normally we check two things. One is what is the resale value or residual value of the vehicle. Another is a business viability. And third, customer is having a, whether he is a local customer's local context is there, because we are not targeting big operators and all. So even post-COVID and pre-COVID, maybe there was some disturbance, but I don't see any challenges right now. And even in commercial vehicle also, around 10 to 15% we are doing new vehicle, and balance 85-90% we are doing used vehicle. So we have expertise of how to evaluate the like valuation and all. This is done by our own company's employee. And even FI agency, normally we are not hiring any outside agency. We have our own local setup. So we are not facing any difficulty on this.
That's interesting to see that we have moved beyond the papers alone into relationship where it really matters, because tier 2, tier 3, as we would understand, are not so document savvy, and you're encashing on your relationship model to help this penetration happen, which is a welcome change. The first feelers that I get from the discussion is that Mr. Sachdeva mentioned that we are looking at upwards percentages. Mr. Bakshi mentioned the challenges of marketplace, and we have somebody who has some solution towards bringing the buyer-seller platform, an opportunity for selling back the equipments, and influx of organized OEMs into this is all. These are all signs of moving from an unorganized to an organized sector. So at this stage, I'll take a leverage of Vijay, you being here representing Mahindra, for the benefit of all those from the farm sector, right? You know, we have been seeing the CHCs, the custom hiring centers, mushrooming all around. We are all aware of the kind of agrarian economy we are. And with marginalizations of farmers being a reality today, more than 85-90% are less than 2 acres, while the need for mechanization is most there. So again, the same challenges of capex versus paper use. Specifically, if I understand rightly, in less than 2 acres is not even 100 hours of usage of tractors in a year. In that case, rental equipment make a lot more sense. Your colleague did mention in one of the panels that there is an initiative on digitization, on leasing, providing as a solution. How do you see Mahindra, which is a lead tractor manufacturer, helping mechanize the farmers, small and marginal farmers?
Jinal, though I don't represent tractor division, but as a group and as my understanding of the services, in tractor industry also, it is about solutionizing the problem of our nation. It is about mechanizing our farmers. And if you see the earlier panel member in the morning, he was representing Krishi, which is one of our initiative, you know, to identify a plot and then, you know, give the prosperity to the farmer in form of a precision farming. That, you know, you use the technology, you use the equipment, mechanical equipments. Of course, typical renting challenge remains in terms of seasonality, in terms of aggregating the tractors and making them reach to the lowest penetration towards a farmer. So those remains a challenge, but M&M has come up and invested heavily in the technology, which enables us essentially to access the customer, or other customer can reach us. Second, we also have our centers, which we have opened across various locations, which enable customer a physical touch. And that is how our chairman, Anand Mahindra, also tweets and very fondly says we have to go towards the phygital system going forward. I mean, you know, it's not merely about digital. The products has to be service-oriented products. The product has to be physically demonstrated to the users. many of earlier panelists were also saying that OEM has to train about the technology, the product penetration, and all those. So in many ways, M&M attempt remains towards creating the channel which are phygital in nature. They are very much physical, they are very much digital. And in the similar lines, we have provided solutions in construction equipment. We are also providing solution in tractors. And we are also working on certain subscription models, if you see in automotive division. What we have done is, with help of Mahindra Finance, our company, we launched Quicklease. So as a complete ecosystem, we are trying to work on this system where we provide services as a solution to the users. And it includes tractor as well, which is the toughest part of the story.
I'll let you leave it at that you rightly mentioned you're not from the farm division, but thanks for expanding on those thoughts. I'd like to elaborate on 2 points, Mr. Sachdeva. You said availability. I would rather rephrase it into availability of the right equipment at the right time. Now, that's a very important aspect of growth for that industry. And secondly, availability of the right equipment with a skilled laborer. That's also a complementary requirement. Now, as an association, if you'd like to elaborate, what are the steps, like in automotive, we see automotive skill development programs going on very actively to train them to the next level of skills required for the industry. Likewise, we know the gaps there are. Mr. Sohail rightly said, these are all high-end equipments. So abuse, how do we avoid that? Now, what are the steps that SERA has taken to make sure that equipment rental industry is rightly spread with the right capabilities of equipment and with the right set of people?
Yeah, certainly there is an abuse at the moment. I mean, looking forward to all these equipments, high-end equipments, there are a lot of unskilled and semi-skilled labor which is working as an operator, and many of the times, if we are not doing the right due diligence of those manpower, they will certainly be landing into some sort of trouble, and the abuse has to be there. I mean, as an automobile engineer, it's been more than 15 years in this industry, rental industry. You can say that you need to do the right SOPs. We need to be on the right SOPs, and we need to do the right due diligence before appointing any of these, operators. Or, I mean, many a times these, whatever they are saying is not right. If they are having an experience of maybe just 6 months, so they can always say that we have an experience of more than 2 years or 3 years. So there is no agency who is doing as if now, but then we need to do the right due diligence. If we do that diligence, I think that will certainly take it all. And in terms of skilling, SERA is working very closely with IFSC, Infrastructure Skill Council Division, and then we are working closely with IPAF. There are a lot of other government agencies. Recently, we are also in advisory board of PhD Chamber of Commerce. So we have recently organized one webinar on skill development, and we are certainly be taking the things forward, and we are directly in touch with all the OEM. I personally has visited all the facilities of these equipment manufacturers, and trust me, every single manufacturer now is having, the right training center at their own facility, and they're working hard on it. And recently, I've been to one of the facility in Chennai, so I found all those, good simulators wherein, you can do the off-site training as well, So on-site and off-site trainings both are happening. Looking at the present scenario, I mean, we are still not out of that COVID thing. So I need both the trainings are at most required, on-site and off-site trainings, both are required. So again, the stakeholders are OEMs, and we are also doing advocacy, with the government bodies. We are closely monitoring all these things, and we are writing many a times to these government councils and bodies regarding the challenges and problems we are facing in terms of skilling. So definitely a lot of things is happening upfront, and looking forward to more skilling. I mean, there is still a long way to go for sure, but then we need to do the right due diligence. Otherwise, the abuse is very well there, and let's not spoil our machines. This is really a hard-earned money, and let's not take it to the toes, So let's have those, skilled operators. And this, even these manufacturers, I mean, they are helping us, sustaining those good manpower. I mean, recently, many of the companies, we bought some good machines from OEM, and they have sourced us the right manpower. I mean, trained by the same OEM. I mean, that's the way to take it forward. So there is no secondary market as if now for the new equipment. I mean, at least for 3-4 years or maybe 5 years. Otherwise, so there is a trouble ahead for sure. So yes, skilling is there at place, and we are working very hard and working very closely with the relevant bodies, and looking forward to more skilling, and training centers in India. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Sachdeva. It's encouraging to see that as an ecosystem, as I may say, we have everybody from right from finance to industry association to OEMs and digital platforms here. Each of them are taking their own steps to grow the industry, which is a welcome change. At this stage, I'd like to invite questions, if any, to the panelists. I think so. Any questions? Well, at the end of the day, people are running short of questions, and they are just...
So that says that everybody is convinced that rental is a future, So that says that rental is a way forward.
At that note, Mr. Sachdeva, I'd like to thank all of you to being a part of this panel.
Mission accomplished,
Thank you, audience, for being around and patiently listening us. At this note, I'd also like to thank Rohit and team to taking these efforts to make this physical presence happen. It's not easy, but you did it again. Thank you, guys.